Welcome to today's episode on Azure Governance and Compliance. In this session, we will explore the fundamental concepts of governance in Azure, why it is critical for cloud environments, and how Azure built-in tools help ensure your resources are secure, compliant, and cost-efficient. Whether you are an IT administrator or a cloud architect, or even a developer, understanding governance is essential, especially for managing resources in Azure effectively. So let's jump right in. So the first topic is the overview of governance in Azure. Well, if we begin with this topic, I will say why you need governance. Because governance is being used by every organization to start with. Whenever an organization starts from scratch and they create their configuration, their structure, their hierarchy, the first thing comes in their mind is to follow the protocols and define governance. So let's jump in. Azure Governance is a comprehensive framework designed to help organizations to manage their security, compliance, and resources within Azure ecosystem. Remember, it can also be used for governing on-premises infrastructure in hybrid architecture. Well, it provides the tools needed to establish rules, protocols, monitoring the resource usage, and also to ensure that the cloud assets are properly governed as per the regulation of your government or your organization. Well, Azure governance includes several key components that enable effective control over your cloud resources. Now, the first one is Azure Policy. This tool or service allow you to define and enforce rules that ensure compliance across your Azure environment. Policies can be set to automatically enforce, or it can also be manually triggered. Well, policies will make sure that certain actions, like restricting resource type or resource location, are actually enforced on different levels of your scope. That is, your subscription level, management group level, resource group level, or even you can apply policy right on the resource. The next component is RBAC, role-based access control. RBAC is again a very crucial component for managing permissions. It allows you to define who can access which resource and what actions they can take. This is essential for ensuring least privilege access is maintained. And also, it protects your environment from any unauthorized users. One more component, that is Azure Blueprints. Azure Blueprints, again, enable you or the organization or administrator to deploy governance or governing standards at scale. You can use blueprints to define a set of policies, role assignments, and resource templates that can be consistently applied across your environment. Think about maintaining departments, HR department, IT department. If you are going to repeat the setup process or the configuration process again and again, or if you want to scale up, you can use Azure Blueprints to automate that process. Next component is management groups. Well, these groups or management groups help you to organize and control multiple Azure subscription within your organization. With management groups, you can apply governance and compliance control at a higher level or higher scope, making it easy to manage resource across various department or business units. Remember, you can also apply policies at that level. And the next one is cost management. Azure's cost management service, or you can say a tool, allow you to monitor and optimize cloud spendings. helping you prevent unexpected expenses by setting up budget or boundaries. Or also, it can also alert you when a certain budget or threshold is actually breached. Now let's talk about some of the best practices. Well, you should, if you can, you should apply least privilege access using services like RBAC. And why will you do that? Well, to maximize your security posture or to minimize security vulnerabilities. You should also try to automate governance with Azure policies or blueprints. Why will you do that? Well, you will get a consistent or standardized environment with that. And you should also regularly audit your resources to ensure ongoing compliance and alignment with your governance policies. So let's move forward. Why governance and compliance are critical for cloud environments? Well, governance and compliance are not just best practices, they're essential for maintaining a secure, efficient, and legally compliant cloud environments. So let's discuss why this is so important. Well, the first one is security and risk management. Well, governance helps prevent unauthorized access and data breaches by enforcing strict control over who can access what resources. This is especially important as your organization scales in the future, and the number of users and services is also scaling along with that. The next one is your regulations. Well, to ensure that your organization meets industry regulations such as ISO, GDPR from Europe, and HIPAA from US, or even more protocols or industrial standards like that. For all of it, governance is key. Compliance with these standards is not an option, it is mandatory in many industries. And failure to meet these regulations can result in significant penalties. Now, the next is cost control. Yes, effective governance is also about controlling your cloud spending. With effective budget enforcement and the right policies in place, you can prevent overspending by tracking and limiting resource usage. What else you can get? Well, how about operational consistency? Governance ensures standardized configurations across your cloud environment. By applying consistent policies and templates, you avoid configuration which actually have a lot of human errors. And you also make sure that your organization is not configuring systems in such a way that they are drifting away from their policies or from their compliance requirements. This also reduces the risk of misconfiguration by anyone. That can also lead to security and operational issues, which will also minimize your productivity, or maybe it will halt your productivity. So you need governance to make sure that your operations are happening in a very consistent manner for many years to come. What else? Well, policy enforcement. Policy enforcement will automate your security and compliance through Azure Policy and blueprints. You will do this to ensure consistency and also to reduce manual oversight. The last one is audit and monitoring. Well, you can use auditing and monitoring tools to track changes, detect anomalies, and ensure accountability within your environment. How will you ensure accountability? Remember, logs are maintained for every change. So the change control is actually quite simple in Azure. Let's move to the next topic, key components of Azure governance. such as policies, resource logs, and management groups. So now let's take a deeper dive into some of these specific components of Azure Governance. Remember, there are many more tools you can use. These are some of the important ones. The first one we have already discussed, that is policies. Well, it will be a recap for you. Policies allow you to define rules for your resources to ensure compliance. You can create policies that check whether resource meet a certain standards or compliance or not, such as ensuring that all storage accounts have encryption enabled by default. Or you can even automate some solutions or remedy for non-compliant resources, making governance much more efficient. But remember, someone have to configure all that or all the policies perfectly in the first place. The next component is resource locks. Well, resource locks are an essential tool to prevent accidental deletion or modification of critical resources. By applying read-only or delete locks, you can safeguard essential resources from human error or unauthorized changes. Now, what is management group then? Well, as organization scales or become big in the future, managing multiple subscription will also become challenging. One or two subscription can be managed easily, but how about hundreds of subscription all over the world? So management groups offer a way to organize multiple subscriptions into an hierarchical structure. This allows you to apply governance policy at a broader scale or level. This will also reduce the complexity of managing compliance across multiple subscription individually. You should not do that. Now let's move to lab and check out how we can use some tools to create a governance structure over our organization. So I will see you in the lab. All right, now let's try to find identity governance and see some of the important functionality over there. So you can search for identity governance, or you can also find it in Entra ID. Once you go there, the most important point is PIM and terms of use. But there are other functionalities as well, such as entitlement management, where you can create access packages for your organization and also catalogs. You can also generate reports. Then you have your lifecycle workflow. For this, you need higher privileges. Let's say, even I don't have this. You need to have higher privileges for this. And my account do not have governance license. Access review. This is where you can actually create the access review first, and then the reviewer will be able to review it and grant or deny the access. Privileged identity management. This is where you manage your PIM. It's the same thing. You assign the privilege, you activate it, you approve, and then you can audit. Plus, your company or your organization can also create a terms of use document or templates over here. And at last, you can also check the logs of activities. And you can also download this for investigation. You can also find identity governance directly from Entra ID. It's under Manage. All right, welcome back. I hope the lab was clear. Now we can summarize this episode. Well, to summarize it, I will say Azure Governance is all about controlling and securing your cloud resources or environment. In this episode, we covered key governance components such as Azure Policies, RBAC, Azure Blueprints, management groups, and cost management as well. We also discussed the importance of governance for security and your compliance management. Plus, we also learned that it is important for cost control and operational consistency in your cloud infrastructure. Well, by leveraging Azure's powerful governance tools, you can ensure that your environment is secure, compliant, cost effective, or efficient, while avoiding potential risks and unnecessary expenditures. Thank you for joining today's episode on Azure Governance and Compliance. Stay tuned for more in depth exploration of Azure services. I will see you in the next episode. Take care.